I would love to give people out there like hope for the future and positivity. I'd love to hear some, you know, maybe a closing thought, but also like some wins that you can talk about, you know, some really great artists that you've worked with who've understood the industry, understood how to invest in themselves, understand how important that is, and then the results they've seen, and just, you know, give us some hope for the future.
Well, the first thing I would say is like if you're an artist, you have time. You know, one thing is like artists feel like they're just in a rush. You know, like they have to do it by a
Yeah.
certain age. Like I've spoke to artists that are like 21. They're like, bro, did I miss my chance or something? You know, it's like 23. Most of them are like 23 because once they get to 23, they think like they're too old or something. You know, so these days, like literally, you could be 70 or 80, and if you're good and you know how to cultivate a following and think you're entertaining, you know, you can make something out of
Hey,
yourself.
those old guys, yeah, maybe they built their brand in the 70s or whatever, but they're still raking in cake. The Dead and Co. at the Sphere, they're doing 3 years there. Like,
I mean, Bob Dylan he's like 80 and he's touring, you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and obviously, I'm telling you, they have a lot of new fans. These are not the
Yeah,
people that were listening to him 40 years ago. These are the people that are just discovered his music, like, oh, Bob Dylan, and they're going to his show. You know, so it's like,
yeah. There's whole new generations. I remember one of the first Grateful Dead shows I went to, Dead and Co., not Grateful Dead. Dead and Co. shows I went to at the Hollywood Bowl. I think it was when I was new to LA. It was like 5 years ago. I remember very specifically observing that there were like 3 generations of people at this show. There were the boomers who came up with the Dead. There were millennials like myself, and then there's like Gen Z there, you know, like the Chads and Brads that go to UCLA and USC, like they're hanging out there too, and everybody's singing the same damn song, you know? So like
yeah,
music is timeless and ageless. And I do know stories of people who made it later in life, you know, like, you know, somebody in their late 30s, early 40s who just decided, fuck it, I'm going all in on music. And they were able to do it. So I agree with you. I've heard that a lot. I've seen it on Reddit. I hang out on Reddit a lot. Like, where does that idea come from? Do you have any idea where people get this thought in their head? Young kids get this thought in their head that they're too old when they're 23.
I think it was something that was like programmed into them when they were growing up because it was like we saw a lot of artists who were younger blowing up because the labels and TVs, that's what they were pushing. You know, MTV was like for kids, so they're like pushing people that kids can like relate to and not think are too old. It was like, you know, there was no data where there was no place like social media where you can pinpoint who you want to make content for. You know, it was like kind of gate kept
Mm,
and it was like specific type of images they were pushing, you know, and I feel like a lot of people came up on that and seeing that as kids and they think it's still the same way, you know.
yeah.
But in reality, like with social media, uh I think the new artists that are winning are a little bit older, you know, they're smarter, uh they're not making dumb mistakes. Like recently a lot of, especially in the hip hop community, a lot of the new rappers that are blowing up, they're like 28, 30. You know. Before it was like 21, 19. But right
I've
now they're like that's like a good age to be, you know, because you're still young and it's like you're kind of more seasoned and you just have a lot more you know ability to connect with people because a lot of them are smarter. They're using social media. They're, you know, they're doing what they have to do. They're thinking like businesses instead of
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of people in this last year, a lot of artists, and it's clear the ones who get it and the ones who don't. And I'm not saying age is the common denominator here, but even the types of clients I like to work with, I like to work with the older, more mature ones because
uh-huh.
they get it and they're more open-minded too, right?
Right.
They're paying me to help them, which means that they're already a step above the artist who's so close-minded. It's like, no, I don't need help. I'm gonna figure it out
Right.
myself. You know. And so yeah, there's just this there's so many things that I've seen and heard that like I'm like, where do people get this? You know, like the age thing is one. You know, I talk to artists, I'll call them up, they come in as a lead and they're like, oh, I just want people to hear my music. And I'm like, then what? I literally will say to them on the phone, I'm like, okay, then what? You know? Like you want people to hear your music, or I want to profit off my music. I'm like, okay, that's gonna take you years, you know. You need to build a brand around that.
Right.